But anyway,
Yeah.
it looks like Adam's chiming in, so let's go ahead and get him in here.
Oh, let's bring him on. Can't wait.
Let's bring Adam on.
Yeah.
How are you?
What is going on, Adam? How are you, buddy?
Not
Where
too
you at,
bad.
Adam?
It's been a minute.
Yeah, it has. Well, look, I want to formally introduce us. I am Shane. Some people say I talk too much. The young one next to me is Justin. And that distinguished gentleman right there is Brad. These are my co-hosts. We get on here and talk a little bit of mess all the time. And, man, I'm glad you can join us, brother.
Absolutely.
Happy Friday.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Absolutely.
For
Happy
on.
Friday. Thanks for joining us, Adam. And yeah, it's good to have you aboard. I know we've been trying for a little while here.
Yep.
Yes.
Now, let me introduce the audience to you for one. I mean, Adam is a guy who started Crowds on Demand back in college at UCLA. Now, Crowds on Demand, for anybody who doesn't know, it is an on-demand service for rallies, events, protests, some say PR stunts, you name it. It's been around since, I think, 2012, and, he helps create a buzz and make a point, and it stirred up a ton of debate over the years. So how is business, Adam?
You know what's good? My priority, as always, is to try to focus. Look, I've been in business almost 14 years, right? So it has been a long time, and the business hasn't always been the same since when I started, as you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
When I started, our focus in 2012 was basically providing butts and seats, bodies at rallies. Doesn't matter how, doesn't matter for whom, right? And typically when you start a business, if you've started a business, that is how you have to start a business. If you come in saying, I'm going to be selective about this and that, you won't get very far. But as I have built this business up, I am a lot more selective about the type of clients we take on and
Okay,
how.
well, hold on a second, Adam. Hold on a second, real quick. Yeah. I want to get to all of that, buddy. But let's pick it apart, okay? Now, first, I want to say, I've got some real questions for you, and honestly, a few concerns about what you do and how it plays into real activism and public trust. But I don't want you to think this isn't going to, there's no gotchas, and it's just a chill conversation. But I just want to hear your take and let the audience decide, how they feel about what you do, because honestly, there's a lot of debate that goes on with an organization like yours. So. Might take a few questions, from the viewers if they chime in and want to ask, some questions. Of course, if they're politely worded, we'll pop those up on the screen and let you respond. But basically, your company is a place for people to go to rent protesters, like an Uber for crowds. Is that short description fair?
Yeah, but it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Okay.
So yes, we allow you to, but Uber, it doesn't matter who you are, right? The difference is with Crowds on Demand is we are selective about the clients we take on, and we're selective about the people who we use for events. And then in addition to merely putting together protests, we help with strategy and, positioning and advocacy and everything around that. So I think the challenge with the Uber comparison is that, first of all, obviously we're not anywhere near that scale. And the second part, obviously, but the second part is that it sort of implies that I'm a bit of a mercenary, which isn't really true. I'm a pretty principled person, and I'm principled. That doesn't mean I have to agree with you 100% to take on your cause. Don't get me wrong, but I have to think that there's merit, and I have to think that we can do something for you. Think of if you're going to a lawyer, right? I know conservative lawyers who will take liberal clients if they have a good point, right? I know I know conservative networks that'll take liberal ads, right? If they have a point. The question is, it's more a matter of being principled. It doesn't have to mean that someone has to agree with me 100%.
Right. Now, and look, you don't have to, overly defend what you do. I mean, and let's, like I said, let's slow down. This isn't a Fox News 7-minute segment. Let me. So I want to know about you. Because I'm fascinated with the fact that you were in college, a college kid, so to say, in UCLA. You ended up launching Crowds on Demand. So was there like a aha moment or some crazy event that made you think, yeah, the world needs rentable crowd, so to say? I mean, what put your brain there?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I worked in politics a lot, mostly on the Democrat side. And I really got to thinking it was a different era, then versus the people who are running these campaigns were my age, college age in the 60s, right? So when they would say, "Hey, Adam, get me a few thousand college students," they thought this was an easy ask because in 1969 that would have been, right?
Sure.
But
Yes.
it was adjusting to an age where there's a lot of competing things for our attention. People are a lot less apathetic, right? Or a lot more apathetic. So actually drawing that turnout was hard. So it got me thinking, wow, when we are able to turn out even a small number of people, it made a huge difference. I mean, imagine, two people so I'm from California, right? Imagine two people, names you'd probably recognize, Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom, right?
I heard of them. Yeah.
Both kind of figures in California at the time. And imagine them coming to UCLA and people being there to see them speak. But seriously, when I got there, that was the situation. I remember literally seeing like those type of people there with like 5 or 10 people listening to them, right? And half of those people were like staff working for them. So, at the end of the day, I got to see, okay, you really need tools to increase turnout, because even someone with a good message would basically not be heard if no one hears them.
Sure. Okay, I got you. Well, let me ask you something. Speaking of back in the day when you started it,
yeah,
how has the business changed? Like, has advancement in tech, has it allowed new ways you're using, the crowds and ways that you couldn't back then in 2012? I mean, has it changed that much for you?
Well, I probably haven't adapted to technology as fast as I should, but
Right.
the way that, because I'm kind of an old school operator. However, I would say that there are a few ways that it has changed, most notably how an event is promoted. So when I started in 2012, a lot of the customers would say, I want to get on the 5 o'clock news, the local news, right? Maybe I want to get on like national news, MSNBC or Fox, ABC. But now so much of what we do is engineered for a viral social media exposure.
Sure.
Like they don't even need the networks, right? Because social media provides these niche platforms to get viral content in a specific area among a target demographic. You didn't have that ability to the extent that you do now.
Right. I got you. So like you said, it's more just the way that you get the word out as really.
I would say that's the biggest difference.
Yeah.
Because if anything, we're more careful than ever before about who we use for events. Like I like to say that we literally interview people for each event.
Sure.
Literally every event that we do, we do a Zoom or a phone call with each participant, even if you've worked with us before.
And I was going to ask you that about vetting people, because just from doing some research, there was a 2018 lawsuit from a Czech investor who claimed your company was hired to run an extortion-style campaign involving paid protesters at his home and pressure on his affiliation. So if that's true, which I assume it is, I don't know how that lawsuit turned out. You don't even have to get into all that. But for the critics out there, how do you ensure clients don't misuse your service for harassment or, coercion? I mean, is there any way you can really be sure, or do you just do your best at trying to vet people and then basically what happens? I mean,
well, the number one thing that we've made a priority of in the past several years, probably about 6-7 years, is number one, vetting people on an individual basis, right? And making sure that they are committed to, well, first of all, that they're articulate, right? Number one. Number
Sure.
two, that they agree with the subject matter, right? So if this is a pro-police event in Minnesota, I would hope that the people would agree with that and maybe even have personal experience with such matters, right? Maybe there's a store owner or a clerk who has experienced a robbery and the police were slow to respond because of the defund, right? So that would just be a hypothetical example, right? So number two. Number three, I want them committed to our principles of peaceful, respectful advocacy, right? So it's critical that, first of all, I mean, obviously we want to follow the law at all times, and we do. But the second part is that we want people to be respectful. You know what I mean? Because actually I find, what is it, that you get more flies with honey than with vinegar, right? And I've very much found that that's true. That doesn't mean you're weak-kneed, right? That doesn't mean you don't advocate strongly, but it means that you're respectful. You're not swearing and cussing and trying to do that. You're trying to persuade and raise awareness, right?
Sure. So how do you respond then to the argument that manufacturing these groups, so to say, erodes trust and genuine activism, even if your intent is a common sense advocacy, but at the same time, if it's not real protesters, like how do you respond to that argument that it might erode the trust of some of these organic protests?
Well, Shane, I think I disagree with the premise of your question, which is,
and that's fine.
There's kind of a dichotomy. There's on one side, there's great grassroots, authentic activism, and there's big bad astroturf, moneyed activism, where the reality is every cause that you've heard of, whether you like it or dislike it, has a ton of money and billionaires and multimillionaires and corporations behind it, whether it's MAGA, civil rights, Tea Party, gay rights, Black Lives Matter, right? You may agree with these causes, you may disagree with these causes, but these causes are funded by people who are very wealthy, and they're people who may have ulterior motives for backing those causes, right? So I think that my only challenge with your question, which is a fairly common question I get asked, is I think that you seem like a smart guy, and I feel like it's just a false naivete, which I think you're too smart for, because
no. Look, you don't have. I see what you're doing. No, look, you know the question I'm asking, buddy. If these protests are manufactured, these protesters, which in a sense they are. How do you defend when people start saying, look, man, you're taking away from the genuine activism that organic protesters are trying to do? That's all I was asking. Like, is there any defense to it? It sounds like you're saying, well, everybody does it, so no matter what the cause is.
Well, and the other thing that I'm saying, so a couple things. So that's one. Number two is the other issue is it does feel like the cries of, oh, you're bought and paid for, is just the sort of common refrain of everyone, conservative and liberal, both accuse each other of this, right? And of course, as I said, they're both doing it, and I know, and believe me, I know firsthand that they are.
I'm sure.
I'm sure you do.
So it makes me laugh when you see people on the right and the left accuse each other of paid.
Absolutely.
Activism, when we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar field that where protesting is really just a slice of that field. There's advertising, there's consultants, there's social media campaigns. So like, I'm trying to answer your questions, Shane.
No, I get it.
So I'm not trying to obfuscate. I'm trying to say that what you're saying is, yes, you, I think, have this either naive view, or I don't think you do, though, because you're smart, but I think that a lot of people have this naive view as my people on my side, we do it all organic, and people on the other side do it all paid. And that's not true. The other thing I would say, Shane, is that what Crowds on Demand does is we're the catalyst. A movement still has to actually have resonance to grow, right? And I know, because I've worked on extremely successful movements that have taken off, right? And the Tea Party, I didn't work on the Tea Party, but the Tea Party is a great example that it was started by the Koch brothers and other conservative billionaires, right? And they had great publicists, and Fox News covered it, right? We all know this. But then why did it grow? Because it resonated with people, right? Because it resonated with people, right? But if these people had not funded it, it wouldn't have grown, right? That's my thesis, right? Okay. So meanwhile, I'm not sure if you remember a guy who ran for president in 2016 named Jeb Bush, right?
Heard of him, yeah.
I don't know whether you remember him at this point, but he was at
high energy,
He was at one point considered. This gentleman was at one point considered the front runner for the Republican nomination, right? And he had about $300 million. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jeb, but it was like an absurd amount of money, right? And on the other side, you had Michael Bloomberg in 2020, similar kind of deal. I'm just going to throw money and hope it works, and it didn't work, right? So what money does is it buys attention, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
Money does not buy success, right? Money buys attention. So
well, let me stop you right there though, real quick. But can it also buy unneeded chaos? You know, like for instance, you take the protesters that were killed recently by ICE agents, okay? Renee Good and Alex Preddy, all right? Now, if we know that protesters are involved in protests like the one, or paid protesters are involved, which I'm sure there were some out there, I would imagine. That was big nationwide, you know, with the ICE and all that shit going around. You know, everybody was out there protesting. I'm sure they had people that were paid to be there. So if we can assume that these people lost their lives, right? So is it fair to say that these paid protesters can rile up the organic protesters and actually make situations more dangerous than it would have been otherwise? You know, in other words, have you ever second guessed what you do when violent and deadly acts occur at these protests if paid protesters are known to be involved? I mean, does that cross your mind at all? It's very
important to clarify that we do not involve ourselves in any form of unlawful protest, right?
Not on purpose, no. But you don't.
Renee Good, that's an example of an unlawful protest. She was obstructing an ICE vehicle, correct? She was obstructing an ICE vehicle, which is illegal, correct? That's my understanding. So we don't engage in those type of protests, number one. Number two, you're saying that people, so what I would say is I'm going to condemn any kind of protester that's trying to stir the pot and create chaos. I'm saying I will say that my company is not one of those people. I try to be in the business of lawful, persuasive, intelligent, respectful activism. So if there are protesters and some of them are being paid who are doing that, I condemn it. I do not associate with it. I have no knowledge of it. And you know what I mean?
I wouldn't sit up here and accuse you of condoning something like, something like that. I was meaning that if people you're sending out there are being hired to send out there are, contributing to extra chaos that doesn't need to be. I mean, is that ever a concern? Or do you feel comfortable enough that the people you send aren't out there to stoke any kind of flames when it comes to these?
That's exactly what it is. Okay. Saying is that it's actually quite the opposite. So one of the reasons our clients use us is actually you get more predictability because we're compensating people. The people who attend our protests are normal blue collar people who are passionate about a cause, but can't really afford to attend protests unless they have some amount of compensation, which we provide them. So those are actually, by the way, the people least likely to want to create chaos. They want to make some money, express their views, and then go home to their families. It's very different from these agitators, oftentimes who are single lunatics, no family, no wife, no husband, you know what I mean? No ties to the community. And that's so our people are actually far more stable. And that's why a lot of people use us to advocate because they know they're assured of a stable, if persuasive scenario.
Got you.
Well, Adam, let me ask you, Adam, real quick. And look, I on an entrepreneurial level, God, your business is so fascinating. It really is. It's a fascinating business. And I think when we look at the paid protesters to fill in this or fill in that, and politics aside, if it's Republican or Democrat or whatever the cause might be, LGBTQ or, gay rights or whatever it might be out there, Muslim rights or whatever. I think it's, dude, I got to say, I think it's a fascinating business. The thing I have, it's that it sounds like when you vet your people, it's almost like a labor finder kind of thing. Like, we're vetting you for what needs to be done at this protest. I've read some of your stuff, your history, and some are good and some are like, God, mostly the one in 2018 down in New Orleans with Entergy, and it's just over some controversial natural gas stuff. And it's just, but to me, the whole business is just fascinating. It is. And, I think you're doing a good job. And if you're truly saying that we're anti this and we're not into violence and we're not doing this, dude, hats off. I think you have a great business, and it's just it's a good thing. It really is. But there's questions in the stuff that I read. You know what I'm saying? It is.
Look, the New Orleans thing is interesting, but I mean, it's kind of cheap. That I know it sounds like you guys are out in Louisiana. So, like, I mean, it's just sort of like hilarious to being lectured by the New Orleans City Council about ethics. I mean, come on, like this is
like I can almost agree with you on
that. They're clowns.
I really can. Well, but it's just an interesting fact that here we got a guy on our podcast and he's got his own business and it's crowds on demand. And, look, you really shed a lot of light. It's even more reason for me not to believe any freaking thing that goes on. No more. Because anything I think that's organic might not really be organic, Adam's
defense on that point is he's saying that these movements are sort of already either there or,
I agree with that.
To be there, that someone's already wanting to make a point. In other words, his company isn't just making up the protest, which I get.
No,
I think it's a brilliant plan. You're capitalizing on it for sure.
Yes. And if I misspoke, but that's what I mean, Shane.
No. Yeah, no, for sure. But I just want to know how we get in on it.
What's that? Absolutely, dude. No.
Here's the thing about
the fascinating thing.
Like, it's not a bad thing to understand that every movement you see has a billionaire behind it. If it's big enough to get across your desk, understand. I mean, we live in a country of oligarchs, whether you like it or not, right?
Sure.
Like, there are left-wing oligarchs, right? There are right-wing oligarchs.
I agree.
There may be oligarchs you agree with. There may be oligarchs you disagree with, right? Fine. Right. But at the end of the day, like, there is no major movement in America that can grow without the support of these oligarchs. Why? About some oligarchs. Why? And this is just like, I'm sorry to break it to everybody, but it's true. Is that this is a country of 330 million people, right? In order to get a piece of information and a cause in the hands of 330 million people, you need to have a ton of money to spread that message. And whether it's through protests or through advertising or through media, right? All of these things you're going to have. So even if you start without an oligarch, you'll have oligarchs attach themselves to you as you grow, right? It's just a reality. So this is now, it's a challenge for people who have a cause, right? Because you have to weigh the relative benefit of having donors that might help you evangelize your cause, and the fact that donors may have their own agenda, right? So in theory, the cause of BLM is a worthy endeavor, right? Like, but now all these companies get involved. And what's interesting is, like, the same thing with Al Sharpton, right? Okay, there are people who are being essentially compensated, and then at the same time, perhaps coincidentally, they're not the companies that are donating to these civil rights activists are not getting lectured for their civil rights concerns, right? So it's like, to the extent that these are like a form of indulgences, like the Catholic Church used to do in the, 1300s, right? like that's really a concerning thing. But people, like, there are oligarchs. I mean, you saw with Epstein, right? Epstein kind of used philanthropy and donations as a way to cement his influence. So it is a concern, but I think that people should like, my advice to people when they're trying to understand activism campaigns is that see if you agree. Do you agree with the message or do you not agree with the message? And don't focus, like, you have to understand that there are important, wealthy, powerful interests behind whatever the message is. So instead of trying to get into that, better off saying, do you agree with it or do you disagree with it?
No,
it sounds
Adam's basically saying, just don't worry about what we do with sending.
Absolutely. I was getting ready to say that. It doesn't matter what way I sway on this. I'm just going to, if you need people for rent, I'm going to find you to. And look, I think it's an ingenious business idea. I really do.
Yeah,
on an entrepreneurial level. Yep.
I'm just poking fun at you, Adam, too. But but look, honestly, though, so with a service like yours, is it fair to say that it just gives the wealthy an unfair advantage? Is it like whoever has the most money wins or gets their point across more? I mean, how is that?
No, actually not. Here's why: is the truly entrenched interests, the big tech, the big pharma, right? They already control Congress. They don't need us. You know what I mean? The truly biggest interest, what do they have to protest? You know what I mean? We are, like, to be sure, our services aren't cheap, but we actually give startups the opportunity to take on Google. You know what I mean? We give startups the ability to take on Pfizer, right?
Sure.
And we have the ability to actually take these on, because you can. If you try to take Google on in Congress, you will fail and fail miserably. They own Congress. You know what I mean?
Right.
Facebook owns Congress, right? Like, but you'll see those hearings where Mark Zuckerberg shows up and they yell at him, but that's performative. That's a performance art piece. Because do you notice they'll never actually do anything to crack down on Facebook or Google or any of these guys, right?
To your point, Adam, and I think with Shane and Justin, we've talked about that on our podcast. It's like, it's all just this charade and it's all this game, and and they're in the back halls of Congress, clapping drinks and wine glasses together, and it's a performance, man, and it really brings to my attention that. Whatever way I lean or not, it's like, I don't trust any of the shit. I really don't. I don't trust any of it anymore, And you've shed a lot of light on that, Adam. I mean, but yeah, hats off to you.
We're actually an oppositional. We actually help people to take on entrenched interests, because one thing that they can't take away from us, the government, is our right to peacefully assemble. It's why it's the First Amendment, right?
First Amendment. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We actually give the ability to people to do that. So, yeah.
Well, let me ask you, to give you credit now, I read that you warned about, I guess, shadowy interest in foreign entities funding chaotic protest, and you've even pushed Congress for a Transparency and Political Demonstration Act to expose these funders. Is that something that you strongly believe in?
I do. Well, I think that will actually help with some of the mystery of all of this stuff. Is and obviously we would follow this ourselves if the Congress passed it. Is any demonstration over 500 people, so that's kind of a larger demonstration, has to disclose who's funding it and who's getting paid from it. Right. So that could be a labor union, that could be a church group, that could be, political consultants, whoever it is. And I want to know up and down the ladder, right? So if it's Soros, the Koch brothers, whatever, like all so instead of having to speculate, let's just see, right? And the other thing I want to do is publish what's called a protester's Bill of Rights and a protester's responsibilities, and same with the authorities. That the goal is to basically say, here's what protesters have the right to expect. Here's what they have the responsibility to do, right? I want to have a playbook for peaceful protesting, right? Because I think that there's what I hate as a First Amendment absolutist is that you have protesters being treated unfairly based on who is in power politically, right? Where you have a liberal district attorney who might go soft on BLM, even though they're blocking the Bay Bridge in San Francisco, whereas a conservative district attorney will go way too harshly on those same people for a less minor violation, right? I don't think that's acceptable to me. I think you have to be you need to, like, the right of protest needs to be respected. And what we have to make sure is that it is enforced in an ideological neutral manner.
I got it. Makes sense.
Said.
Yeah, it is. And I was just curious about that because it threw me off at first when I was reading that you were behind wanting the transparency. And I don't mean that because I know you personally. I just mean because of the type of business that you run. I'm thinking, well, you don't want people knowing who's funding these protests.
No, I do want people, because my goal is to destigmatize this. Like, sure. Because what did I say at the start is that at the end of the day, all protests are bought and paid for in one way or another, and that'll expose this. And then we won't have such like oh my God, this is paid for, or like, let's not get into this speculative circle jerk on each protest. Let's just, see it, the transparency,
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, man. How involved is the big bad monster George Soros in all these democratic protests? Because that's all we ever hear, is that he is behind everything. Everything Democrats do. George Soros is funding.
Transparency Political Demonstrations Act, because you'll know for sure, right?
You're probably friends with him.
Let me just work you through how these things can be run. Okay. So have you ever, I've described this before, but it's called Russian dolls, right? So it's little dolls that fold into bigger dolls. Sure. So the reality is that little doll at the center is the original funder, right? And that funder might be a billionaire, funds some, let's just say, foundation, right? And then you have the foundation funds a nonprofit. The nonprofit funds corporate, PR firms. The PR firm funds an academic program. The academic program pays, pays someone else who then does the demonstration. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So at the end of the day, you have to go with different layers. Now, there's a good and a bad reason for that. The good reason is we have the right to anonymous free speech. Why do we have the right to anonymous free speech, you ask? Well, because of cancel culture, right? Cancel culture is a scourge. I've worked with many conservative business people who have done their operations through me, not because they're embarrassed to be conservative, but because they know that if it got out that they were working on conservative causes, that they would lose their job and their livelihood, right? So the reality is, and that's how bad the cancel culture is. So anonymous free speech is an important right. Now, the question is that anonymous free speech does not protect you if you're funding illegal activity. So because that's not free speech. So the question is, if you want to use an opaque funding network to preserve your anonymity, that's fine. But if you're using it to fund illegal activity, that's not fine.
Sure. Now I've got one of the comments here. Now this isn't, I didn't say it, but one of the problems with this grift is that when protesters don't know anything about what they are protesting, it completely delegitimizes the cause. Now I think you spoke on that earlier, saying that you claim that you vet people, sort of have meetings with them, whether it be Zoom or whatever, to try to make sure that they align with the cause that they're about to protest. Is that what did I get that right?
Absolutely true. That's absolutely true. But I actually agree with the premise of what this person says. But by the way, there's a lot of other reasons than being paid. So when they say the problem with this grift, they're assuming that I've seen plenty of uninformed protesters who go to protest. Maybe they're trying to get laid, right? Like, how many guys have gone to protests, especially on the left, trying to get laid, right?
That'd have been me when I was younger and not married. I'd have been.
Good for you. Good for you. I hope it worked out for you.
I'm just kidding.
But the at the end of the day, okay, so that guy might not know anything either, right? Like, you think the hippies, some of the hippies at the Vietnam protests, like, were there for something other than marijuana. They were just, a lot of them were trying to get high, right? Again, I'm not saying weren't people who were genuinely opposed.
Sure,
I don't want to
sure.
wait for that. I'm just saying that someone took offense when I said that previously, so I want to be clear.
Oh, well, that's all we do is offend people on here, so don't worry.
Yeah. But what I was saying is that the fact that someone's paid is not the only reason someone, if anything, I vet people for being informed. The randos who just show up to these things are often very ill-informed, and they're just, a lot of them are just going to, just because, to create chaos, some of the really bad actors. So, so my point is that, that's not really our problem.
Well, let me ask you, how much can I make being a protester?
Yeah.
It really
does that
depends.
just vary? It just varies.
Well, it varies, right? So if you're doing let's just say you're sitting in an audience, listening to a speech for a few hours and getting free drinks, a couple hours, it could be in the low 100s, right? If you're out there in the freezing cold for 12 hours holding a sign and chanting, like it'd be in the hundreds, you know what I mean? For sure.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the goal.
It sounds like when I've been on movie sets, it's like extras. If you get a speaking line, you get like $2,500. If you're just going to be in the background, you get about $100 that day. Whatever I see out there. But
exactly.
But no, it's man, it's interesting what you do. It sounds like you have no qualms about it. I mean, and I know you catch a lot of shit, I'm sure, over the years about it. I mean, I know we're not the first ones to kind of give you a hard time about it, which I'm just having some fun with you.
I think you're asking very reasonable questions, actually.
Well, because I respect what you do. I mean, I'm a capitalist. I get it. I mean, look, you found something that
a
needed,
niche.
A niche that you said, hey, this doesn't exist, or maybe it did. I don't know. I mean, you might be like Zuckerberg and you stole the whole idea from somebody in college.
That's not true, but I didn't steal the idea, but I will say that it isn't a new idea. It really isn't a new idea of making sure that you have attendance at important events and planning protests and all that. It's just, I'm just really very upfront about what we do, and I try to be honest, and that's why I come on your show, and that's why it's awesome to spend some time with you this evening.
And Adam, let me ask you real quick. Let me just cut you off right there. But I get where we are today in 2026. But with the history you have, with the business you have, was this going on in the 60s during the Vietnam era? Were they hiring protesters and it looked organic and it's really, was that going on? I don't know without researching. I just asking if you would know.
Well, were there ways that they organized? I don't know. That's the question. So I really don't know. Was that happening? I honestly what I do know is that the U.S. government at the time was trying to play favorites with civil rights groups, right? That's come out, right? Like they
you got a point.
They didn't like Malcolm X, right? Like so I don't know anything about compensating protesters directly, but I do know that the U.S. government was very involved trying to figure out what civil rights groups and what anti-war groups could be heard and which ones wouldn't, which would be marginalized, which would be discredited, right?
Yeah.
So to the extent like you're saying powerful interests, it doesn't get more powerful than the United States government.
Not at all. It's an interesting conversation. I have enjoyed every part of it. It is. It's unique, and it's and what you have going on as an entrepreneur, as myself and most of us up here, 30 years plus. God, I think it's interesting. I think it is, and the criticism you probably get. I hope the other end of it outweighs the criticism that you get, but. From what I'm seeing and reading, I can't really say that I oppose to it. To be honest with you, I think it's a great thing. Yeah,
Well, I really appreciated the conversation. I really appreciated spending time with you guys. It was fun, and we
ain't going nowhere. I want to know: is Epstein dead?
Oh my God! I will say about the Epstein files. I mean, I think that there's a lot that we still don't know. I would urge the appropriate people to release everything.
But you got to know, we will never know the truth behind. It's kind of like the JFK stuff. We'll never know that.
No,
I mean, we all know the truth.
But there's here's a big difference, though, Shane. There's a big difference between this and JFK. JFK files, there was no emails, right? There were some telegrams already that were interesting, but here got emails, you got texts, and I say release every damn last email and text and unredacted.
Well, we all say that, but don't you assume there's some powerful people behind that will never allow that to happen? You know what I mean?
They've been trying to stop it already. I mean, you can see, I mean, we had the president promise to release all these files, and then he didn't, and he literally used every ounce of political capital that he had to resist releasing it. And now you see why. I mean, you have everyone from Elon to Howard Lutnick to Reed Hall. I mean, you have all these. Yeah, I see why Biden would release it too, right?
Elvis was in it.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So at the end of the day, I certainly hope that we'll see everything.
Yeah, I have a little bit of faith, and I hope you're right. I just don't trust anything that this government is.
To demand it, though. This is actually a great cause for us to demand full release of the Epstein files, and I would take that case. I would demand full release.
Yeah, it would be awesome. I just, it's hard to have any faith knowing that this big, powerful machine seems to be behind it, because I'm with you. The Trump administration from day one when he was running was like, we're going to release them. As soon as we get in, we're going to release them. Pam Bondi's like, I've got them on my desk, and we get nothing. And then when they did release it, they took this massive dump, so to say, and just threw it out to the world and said, here you go, dig through it. And I think that shit was done on purpose, because you can't make heads or tails of this stuff, man.
Well, they also wanted it to bury some of the stuff, but it was actually a bad decision if they were trying to like bury it all in obscurity, because it actually led every reporter in the country to start combing through it, and it created a whole firestorm. But so it was actually a bad decision from a PR standpoint too. But they overplayed their hand for sure. But the thing is that they should have released it all at the start. You know what I mean? And all these people shouldn't have lied about their association with Epstein. That was dumb too. So at the end of the day, like, to me, Epstein is the devil, and that it's very interesting to know who fell for the devil's spell.
Well, did you see any of the Clintons' testimony the other day?
Okay. Wait, it's on my to-do list to listen to that. Yeah. I listened to some of the other stuff. So, but the point is, I will put it this way: this is a bipartisan scandal. I mean, you have Bill Clinton.
Sure. Yeah.
On one side, you got Elon, you got Howard Lutnick. I mean, you have people on both sides. So I see why Biden didn't release it. I see why Trump didn't release it. But it's an absolute disgrace not to release it, because it's almost like both parties just agreed, like, we disagree on this, we disagree on that, we hate each other, but we both agree that we're going to protect these despicable men. And I think that's shameful. I think they should release every last file today.
Well, what really pissed me off was when Kash Patel sat on Joe Rogan's podcast and lied to the American people, saying that, you know, basically he didn't have any kind of evidence that there was anything going on besides what Epstein was doing, and we know that was total fabricated bullshit, because Pam Bondi just got done saying a couple weeks before that they had 10,000 hours of video evidence, and then this asshole gets on Rogan stuff saying they don't have anything. And I just think the whole thing was botched by this DOJ, and I can't figure out why. Like, what are they covering up, and who are they covering up for?
And there's more out there, and there's a lot of the most disturbing emails referring to heinous acts that are just too disturbing to describe, that I like, they're redacted. So we don't know who sent those emails. True. Like, Jesus Christ, like, there's somebody emailing about these horrible things, and we have no idea who is making those emails. So right. I think that it'll only be, it's kind of like a kid. You make a mistake, and then you just cover it up, and it actually gets worse, the cover up.
Yeah.
Your parents are like, just be honest. I think this is a case where the more you just tell us everything now. The more we have to uncover, the worse it's going to look for the people who are implicated.
Yeah, and I think no matter what they do now, I think the trust is gone because, like I said, this administration, pardon my French, it's not like you never heard it before, but they fucked this up from the very beginning. They lied to the American people. Supposedly we were going to have all the information. People were going to go down for this, and we haven't seen anything but a bunch of files dumped with names in it, like I said, like Elvis Presley, because anybody who was ever named by Epstein or anybody that emailed back and forth for whatever reason, their name popped up in these emails.
Aliases.
Right. Yeah, it was nonsense, man.
A lot of them, the crafty ones, so they use aliases. So we need to really delve into this. And I think the handling has been bad, but I think I don't know whether it's botched or a case of trying to use political capital to cover for some of these men. And that's almost the more disturbing scenario.
How involved was Trump in this? That's the question, man. You know,
I mean, we don't know any of this stuff until they should reveal all of this. And I will say, if Bill Clinton is testifying, unless it does feel that Trump should testify under oath before this committee about this, right? Like he was also a known associate. I mean, again, I think that transparency is the best policy. Like, I think you can clear your name. I mean, I think they can all try to clear their names, but if they don't speak about it and they cover it up, then it really makes us think that there's more there. So yeah.
And I know Trump's excuse for a while was that if we release these files, there's going to be a lot of innocent people's names in them that are going to be looked at in a bad light now. And that was his excuse.
They're not innocent. I mean, they may be criminally innocent, but all these guys who associated with Epstein and joked around with him about his kind of vile acts, like they're innocent. They may be criminally innocent, but from a social standpoint, they're not. You know what I mean?
Sure. Right.
So what he means by innocent is maybe, I don't, it's hard for me to dissect what Trump means by anything he says, but
he is a character.
But I think but I think that's what he may have meant. So, but they may be criminally innocent. That's fine. If they're criminally innocent, then they're not criminals, but the emails should be released and people can do with them what they like.
Yeah. Well, last thing on the Epstein files, and you mentioned it earlier, Adam, is just the way that the only name ever shown basically with these back and forth is Epstein. And anybody who was sending this disgusting shit or even commenting back to it, they were redacting. It's like, why would you redact?
It's unacceptable.
It's nuts.
I know why they're redacting it. I just think that they need to unredact it. We need to see who these guys are. We need to see. I mean, it's not a surprise that they're redacting it, but I'm saying don't redact it. We deserve to see the truth. But what's scary, what is concerning is that there are some very powerful, very, very wealthy people who are probably lobbying very, very hard for them not to. Because Trump is not someone who uses political capital on other people very often. I mean, he generally uses it on himself, right? So to the extent that he's using it to cover for all these guys on there, and I don't even think, like, if I had to guess, like, I don't even think it's covering for his own role in this, because I mean, his association with Epstein ended way, way long ago. So I don't even think Trump is covering for himself. I think he's covering for some of these really wealthy donors. And my question is, what are they? They must be lobbying him very hard to have him cover for them like this.
So what did they think was going to be said when they released all these with all those redactions in it? What did they think the American people were going to say? Or did they not even give a shit? I guess is the way I take it. It's like, here you go. Yeah. You don't like it that it's redacted. So what? What are you going to do about it? Because they had to know.
Well, I think it's, he thinks that his base will go along with anything he tells them to do. So maybe
yes,
but for the most part, that might be true. Yeah, I mean, that could be true. And I just look at it like this, and we've talked on the cast like this to interject, and it's like, I just look at it like if they had something major on Trump with Epstein files, God, that would have been brought out regardless, dude, just to get rid of him because they know how he is, But I agree with you that he's being lobbied hard not to release donors, and that makes a good point when you say that with donors and stuff. Because as I've said before in this cast, I truly think if it was truly redacted, everything was in the open, you can do what you want to do with it. I think it would rock the moral fabric of maybe not this country, but the world. It would just be to know who was doing what, and CEOs and powerful CFOs.
I want to know that.
Yep.
What we've already released has been very enlightening.
Yes.
And so the fact that we've only gotten the tip of the iceberg means that we need to see the rest of it, because we already know
agree.
how many depraved people are in our society already, Yes. And I want to know all of them. And this is truly the height of depravity. And I think that I think unfortunately Trump has Trump doesn't seem to think his base will ever hold him accountable for his promises. So Trump seems to think his supporters.
But even hold him. But what is hold him accountable? Because for one, he can't run again, and you can't. It's not like we can go arrest Donald Trump. I mean, how can we hold him accountable? To me, it just shows that the government itself does not give two shits what the American people think, because if you can see, this isn't the first time they've done some nonsense like this, where they throw some shit out there and basically say, oh, well, what are you going to do about it? Because that's all this was. It's like, here you go.
Hold Republicans account. I mean, my question is, are they going to hold Trump accountable at the ballot box in 2026, right? Are they going to sort of say, look, we lost our faith in Trump, right?
And vote for who? Gavin Newsom? You may back him. So in other words, if we go in 2028, because we know Gavin's running. So now you got to say, okay, Trump fucked up the Epstein files, but then say you're a hardcore conservative. You think that's going to switch people to vote no matter, you know what I mean? For Gavin Newsom or somebody like that they're going to throw up there. I don't think that's about just them following
I'm not
Trump blindly.
I'll put it okay. Well, I'm saying that I'm not a MAGA or a Democrat, so this is not my fight. But I would say that
stop. You're so Californian. You don't have to choose a side, bro.
No, I don't. I refuse to choose a side because
I'm registered independent myself. So
why do I have to choose a side? I mean, both sides suck.
Thank you. I agree.
I agree. I can agree with you in that. Yeah, absolutely.
Why am I going to choose a side? I'm going to vote for. I vote. I will say I vote in the elections. I vote for who I consider the better of the two choices or the multiple choices. But my advice to anybody, if you feel like you've been made promises and are betrayed, then vote against that person and tell them that you're not going to.
It's so much easier said than done, though, bro. Because now you're talking about who's going to run the country you live in, and because somebody fucks up, you're like, well, I'll just go against everything else I believe in, and I believe one side is just way off the rails, but I'm gonna go ahead and vote for them because the last guy that was in that I voted for did something stupid. That's a tough one, man. I just don't see, I don't see that really swaying anybody, and not because they're hardcore MAGA. I just think the other options out there are horrendous going into this new election. I mean, in 2020, I know we're a ways away from that, but that's where it's leading to. And I know Newsom's going to be the front runner. And there is no, well, maybe he'll do okay. You either love what he's doing over there for some odd reason, or you hate it. And I don't think Trump fucking up with Epstein files is going to make anybody say, well, I'll just go vote for the other side now. It's just hard to see that, man. No. We need somebody more moderate, at least on the Democratic side, before people start jumping ship,
Probably.
I don't know. I don't know who else they can throw up there. It just seems like they're grooming Newsom to be there. You see him. I mean, he's getting on his podcast. He's trying to relate with the average everyday guy now. And I get it. I mean, it's all politics,
Well, look, I don't want to get into deep political discussion.
Come on, man.
What I would say is that the front runner at this point, we talked about Jeb Bush.
Yeah.
In 2016, the front runner at this point in the election was Jeb Bush. The front runner at this point in the 2008 election was Rudy Giuliani.
Right.
Rudy Giuliani was the front runner in 2008, right, for the Republican nomination.
Yeah.
Right. The front runner in 2008 on Democratic was Hillary Clinton. Right.
Sure.
So, the fact being a front runner this early has historically not been a good thing. So
it doesn't pan out well, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. So I mean, look, maybe it works out for Newsom or not, but generally, being the front runner 2 years before, well, 2.5 years before the election, has not actually led to that person being the nominee.
Gotcha. And I respect what you're saying about not choosing a side, because look, you're not fooling me. I know you have a side, but you have a business to run also. I totally respect that. I wish you didn't, because you're very interesting to talk to, and you're very educated on all this. And I would have a blast with you on here all the time, just talking politics and news and shit. But I get it. You can only, you got a business to run. I totally respect that. So we'll leave the politics alone. But you are very articulate and interesting, and it's a nice fresh voice on here, and then I would love for you to do it more, even if it's not talking about your business, just basic news stories, give your opinion on things. Dude. Yeah, we don't have to get into who you're voting for and all. That's your personal business. But
happy to come on again.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you one more thing about what you do before we let you go.
Yeah.
I know you've helped, small kind of small business getting attention and big advocacy campaigns. What's a success story that stands out to you? Something that you're kind of proud of that you were able to help? Is there anything that comes to mind? Something that you got behind that?
The delete Facebook movement.
Okay.
So, and that's something we can all agree with. I think Republican or Democrat or no political affiliation is that social media companies are a cancer, right? By the way, interestingly enough, Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, right? Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, and Elon Musk of Twitter. What's one thing they all have in common? Guess.
What do they all have?
In files.
Right?
They're all in the Epstein files. So interesting, right? So just throwing that out there. So
yeah.
So basically, that social media has been a cancer in our society, right?
True.
And we were brought in by, my understanding is the people who paid us were actually people who had made a lot of money investing in Facebook, but who were like deeply concerned at what it had become. It's like you built the Frankenstein monster, right?
Wow.
Is that like basically Facebook had, misused data. There's accusations that Facebook platform was used to create a genocide in Myanmar by whipping up false information about a particular ethnic group, and they had no one in the moderation team who cared at all about it. You know what I mean? So it was just run in such a bad way. So we created this campaign called Delete Facebook. So every time Zuckerberg was testifying on Capitol Hill, out Facebook office, outside his gated estate, right, we had protesters out there, and it was it went viral. Obviously, it got a lot of coverage, and people didn't delete their Facebook accounts, but it actually led Facebook to change their name. Do you know what they call themselves now? They call themselves Meta.
Meta, yeah.
And then the second thing it did is it tightened up. It led them to change their political advertising practices. So look, this is a bad company, in my opinion. They do so much bad in the world. Just the insecurity that they create in young people and all of that, like, it's just horrible. But we made a difference, right? And then one other campaign that we did that was very impactful was we did a campaign that when certain insurance companies started canceling insurance policies for people who were on a HIV prevention medication, which was kind of taken more likely to be taken by people in the LGBT community, right? A lot of insurers were dropping these people, which to me seemed like a backdoor to discriminate against the LGBT community. So we were hired, and we basically did a campaign cracking down on this, where we contacted and met with insurance commissioners in various states and said, look, this is an unacceptable policy. And within a month they changed this, right? So this was a case of discrimination, right? So that was or in my opinion, discrimination, right? So yeah, I mean, these are impactful efforts that I think made the world a better place. So I think we do a lot of good work.
Well, I like like you said, the one with the whole Facebook and just social media in general. But it's funny to listen to the damage, that these social media platforms have done. But yet you've got people like Zuckerberg out there virtue signaling constantly, like trying to tell people how to live and how they need to be, what they need to be doing with their lives. And meanwhile, he's a piece of shit, really running. Like you said, a cancer to society is what this is. Now, I'm on it. I'm on all of them, but I do see the negative impact that it's had, especially on young kids. I feel fortunate that I didn't come up when that shit was around, because I'm with you. We were better off without it, honestly. And when you have people like him that know the evilness and everything that's going on with that, and to continue to sell it as it's some positive improvement to society, it's a joke, man. It's a joke.
Right. Let's just say that it's like a cigarette and stop pretending that it's good for you.
Yes.
Well, gentlemen, this has been a pleasure.
It really has, Adam. Look, I'm going to reach out to you on my X account, and I'm going to try to keep in touch. And if you ever just feel like getting on and bullshitting with us just about some normal talk, man, we'd love it, dude. You've been fun to talk to for sure.
Let's do it, gentlemen. This was fun.
Well, good.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate your time. And
Yep.
Yeah, till next time, guys. It's been a blast.
Absolutely.
Be good.
Take care.